Good afternoon, everyone. Dydd Goel Dawi Hapus. Happy St. David's Day. First of all, apologies. The first apology, which is quite clear, is the leader is not with us today. So Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader, standing in and chairing Cabinet for today. And I will ask my colleagues on Cabinet to introduce themselves.
Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Good afternoon, Cabinet Member Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education and Learning.
Good afternoon, Councillor Brian Jones, Cabinet Member for County Operations.
Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Community Development.
Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member for Social Care, Safeguarding and Health.
Opposition spokesman?
Councillor Dimitri Petruni, Leader of the Labour Group.
Councillor Francis Taylor, standing in for Councillor Howarth as independent spokesperson today. Thank you.
Thank you all. And officers, if when you're called you could introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Sorry, Councillor Greenland. Can I just offer Councillor Howarth's apologies formally if they've not already been recorded?
Indeed, I was going to do formal apologies, but you've mentioned that. And Councillor Fox is, in fact, at the centre of government this afternoon. He's in 10 Downing Street, so he sends his apologies formally as well. We're welcoming this afternoon 4 representatives from the EAS, Educational Achievement Services, to bring us the business plan for the coming year. And I don't want them to have to stay unnecessarily for a lot of our meeting. So what I'm going to do is to bring forward the EAS business plan to follow the effectiveness of council services. Okay, let's go into the agenda proper. Any declarations of interest? Well, I have one first. I'll come to you in a minute. I have one for a start as a director of the EAS. It is a personal, non-prejudicial interest, and I do not need to in any way stand down or not take part in the discussion on that item. Councillor Taylor.
Just to note, Chair, that I'm a member of Mago with Endy Community Council, so to declare an interest on the Kingfisher Rise Section 106 report.
Okay, thank you for that. We have no considerations of reports from select committees this afternoon, so we'll go straight into item 4.1, the first one, which is the safeguarding progress report. Now, whilst Councillor Burrows will be presenting this, safeguarding, as we all are fully aware, is not simply a matter for social services. It's an all-council responsibility, and it's something that we all need to take great care with and ensure that we're up to speed with it. So, Councillor Burrows, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I'm happy to introduce this report today, which demonstrates the progress of the whole authority safeguarding group that has made in the last 9 months in clarifying the original 19 activity programme headings relating to safeguarding in order that a clearer picture can be gained on how we're doing as an authority. The all-encompassing priorities in which they're making their self-assessments are as follows: good governance, a safe workforce, a preventative approach, robust protection, safe services which are delivered through commissioning arrangements, grants, partnerships and volunteering. You will see in the appendix the self-assessment as to where we, or should I say the whole authority safeguarding group, believe we are in the scheme of things, and happy to discuss aspects rather than just go through it piecemeal. My overarching sense of this self-assessment, with the exception of the section titled Preventative Approach, is one of sound progress, but taken with caution. We're, in my view, successfully embracing the whole authority approach to safeguarding, but still we have a lot to do. We're making progress in cultivating a safeguarding ethos in our relationship with vulnerable adults and children, but acknowledging the implication that staff training and cultural embedding is a never-ending process. And we need to be constantly focusing on the fact that a complex organisation like ours, with over 750 different services we provide to the public, will always be a substantial challenge. One of the cornerstones of this authority, though, is our desire to protect vulnerable people, and an accomplished approach to safeguarding directly contributes to this. These headings will form the basis of a revised safeguarding policy which will be put to Council later this year. And combined with that, there will be periodic update progress reports to Council, also by the whole authority Safeguarding Coordinating Group, similar to that which I'm sure you'll recall from Jane Rogers prior to her promotion to Head of Children's Services. So happy to take questions. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Jeff. Cabinet colleagues, any comments, questions? Liz.
Just a very quick one. I fully support this, and it's quite encouraging to see the amount of work that is being done. And as the Deputy Leader said, safeguarding is for everybody. I note that the vulnerable adults are going to be included in this, which obviously I think is an excellent idea, because safeguarding isn't just for children. And it is quite interesting. There are 800 Year 8 children that have watched a play about safeguarding and the modern age and Facebook and telephones, etc. And that is going to hopefully be rolled out. And it was one of the most thought-provoking plays I've seen for a long time. So I think fair play on that one.
No, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Councillor Bertruni.
Yes, Deputy Leader, thank you. Happy St. David's Day to everyone as well. Two questions. First one is around, I know that safeguarding covers leisure centres, but if we migrate all our leisure centres to a different model, what measures do we have in place to migrate safeguarding practices and procedures? What reassurances will we have? There's disparate practice across the whole of Wales on this matter, and it's not clear. Safeguarding is standardised, quality assurance of safeguarding in those models is standardised across Wales. So I was wondering what our plans are if, and I appreciate it's an if, we migrate to an alternative delivery model. And secondly, and this is more anecdotal, I've been informed that there's the creation, I forget the proper term for them, homes which are private homes, landlords, and the people, vulnerable adults particularly, commission to basically rent those homes out. 3 or 4 of them pull their money together and they rent the home out and they commission their own kind of care services. And my understanding is this is not governed by CSSIW in covering, make sure the proper checks and safeguarding is in place. And it's the council's responsibility. And I'm just wondering, can I have further details about this practice and what measures we have in place to protect vulnerable adults when they commission such services?
Okay, we'll deal with those first. As far as leisure centres are concerned, on a general point, it is an area where we have to be particularly careful. And as we move forward, and if we do move forward into an alternative delivery model for leisure centres, it will be, I can assure you, at the top of our agenda to make sure that safeguarding issues are dealt with properly as we move forward. And I think recently there's been a meeting of the joint select committees. Whether that came up on that, I don't know. But certainly it will go forward as a point, and you're right to bring that up. As far as the vulnerable adults, I'll hand over to Claire Marchant.
Thanks very much, Deputy Leader. In terms of the first question, just to add in there, one of the reasons why we've refocused the priorities in the progress report is to make sure we're really focusing and clear around our responsibilities as a safeguarding authority for services which we don't deliver directly ourselves. That priority, safe services delivered through commissioning arrangements, grants, partnerships and volunteering, picks up exactly that, because there's far more services which are delivered to children and to adults at risk which we don't provide ourselves as a council than those that we do. And those sort of arrangements which Councillor Petruni just referred to then, which I assume are supported living arrangements, which are where a person with a learning disability, mental health problem, or another form of disability has their own tenancy, which is really fantastic progress in terms of supporting their independence, that they're not in a residential care setting, because as far as they can live the lives that they choose to with the restrictions of their conditions, they're able to do that through a tenancy, and then care and support. Either they can do that themselves through a direct payment arrangement, which we as a council do administer and make sure that safeguarding is built into those direct payment arrangements, or through a service commissioned from a care and support provider by us as a council, and it's far more likely to be the latter. And any contracts we have with care and support providers for people within supported living environments have safeguarding fully embedded within them. It's quite true to say that as far as CSSIW regulation of providers is concerned, that's not covered in terms of supported living, but it's a model of provision which is some 20, 30 years in development and is tried and tested, really. And it's for us as the commissioners to make sure that safeguarding is really embedded in those commissioned services.
Councillor Taylor.
Just an observation and a question to check I'm right. So on the 6-month performance report, where we're rated 1 to 6 on various aspects of safeguarding, such as governance, presumably 6 is good, 1 is bad. I note that particularly in the areas Claire just mentioned around, external commission services, we're only at a 2 at the moment. That's the rating. And equally, in terms of governance, we're at 3, which is presumably in the middle. I'm not sure what the 1 to 6 stand for, frankly, but I was really wondering then what assurances we can take from those the current position. And I note that some of the areas I would have expected to be in the, where progress is required, don't really feature in the narrative of the report. I wondered if perhaps we can have a little explanation of that. Thank you.
Councillor Burrows.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, the point is well made. I mean, what we have is cultural change. Safeguarding is going to be a story that will be with us in perpetuity. And for us, what we start upon is that which we have within our gift of control, and that is in terms of safeguarding, education and training within the service, within the authority and all of the directorates. What is happening is we're trying to push beyond those boundaries and starting influencing through commissioning and through third party and through the third sector, actually our influence in the importance of safeguarding elsewhere. What you see here is our self-assessment of where we think we are. I mean, for example, from where we make reference to the preventative agenda, we think we've done a huge amount because in there we have complete gift and control over that side of work. So we think work is being, the good progress has been made in that area. But no, I acknowledge what you're saying, that we're trying to provide with you what we consider to be a straightforward position. We're not complacent about this, and we acknowledge there's still a great deal of work to do. But once you get beyond the boundaries of where we have control in terms of staff and training, then you're out into the open, and it's very much following the comments from Dimitri earlier when we're talking about other commissioning arrangements. The first thing you have to do with all the other things is in scoping is understanding the safeguarding understanding of other organisations or lack of, and start working towards bringing them in line with our values in this respect. And so there is still work to do, and I acknowledge that.
Claire.
Yeah, just to add in, it probably would have been helpful, and I can amend future reports with the scoring, what the definitions of the scoring are, because obviously that's helpful in seeing how we have self-evaluated ourselves. So level 3 is adequate, so strengths just outweigh weaknesses. Level 2 is important weaknesses. And I think, as the Cabinet member has said, that's because it is very much a developing agenda. Safeguarding has been with us for a very long time. as Councillor Hackett-Payne said in her comments, the fact that safeguarding adults at risk is now on a statutory footing alongside safeguarding children means there's naturally a degree of caution in our scoring arrangements, because quite simply we're still establishing the information systems to make sure that we can adequately and properly advise you around where we are. And I'd always rather err on the side of caution in terms of a score until we've got information which tells us really that safeguarding culture, practice, operations is embedded as far as we need it to. I think particularly that one around the commission services and services which are out there but may not have a formal relationship with us as a council. It's a very developing area. So, you know, some of the challenges that there have been to us, if we hire out a village hall to an organisation, what do we know about their safeguarding arrangements? Those are the sort of, you know, the reach really of safeguarding into our communities that we need to be thinking about, whilst continuing to make sure it's embedded within our council and everything that we provide directly ourselves as a council as well. So it's a never-ending piece of work.
Councillor Taylor, are you seeking further clarification?
Thank you for that response. I think just, for example, if we consider the things that are in our gift, so if we look at the good governance, where at the moment we are, as you say, adequate, I think it would be welcome to understand better the scoring criteria, because that didn't mean a great deal to me, I must confess, although perhaps I'm just not used to looking at this particular report. Although, in governance terms, what it says is, are we good at having systematic processes for officers and members to, you know, understand where we are? If it's not clearly in the report, perhaps, or, you know, if it's not articulated explicitly, then perhaps that's one of the weaknesses that we could easily address in terms of making sure that it's understandable. Thank you.
Yes, I take that on board. I also take on board that actually we don't want to be over-optimistic when we're doing this. We need to be on the cautious side. So that's also the case. Right, are there any other more comments before we go to the vote on this? No? Just for anybody who may be watching at home or elsewhere, come to think of it, either live streaming or on the YouTube, the agendas for the meeting are on the council website, and you'll find everything that you need there. But I will read out the recommendations as they appear on the agenda. And the first recommendation is that Cabinet uses this report to help their continuous monitoring and evaluation of the effectiveness of services and the extent to which they are contributing to the Council's priorities of education of children, support for vulnerable people, enterprise and job creation, and maintaining locally accessible services. That's the first recommendation. The second is that Cabinet use this report as an opportunity to identify any action that may need to be taken to drive improvement, ensuring that services are as effective and efficient as possible in the context of current resources. So those are the two recommendations. Cabinet members, are you in support? Thank you. It's actually an additional report which is not included in the main body of the agenda, but is there as an additional report. And so we're taking that one with it, which is the Safeguarding and Quality Assurance Service Manager, Jeff Burrows again.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. A simple, straightforward report in my view, in that we are seeking to increase capability within the safeguarding unit to support yet further the task of culturally embedding safeguarding for both the authority and beyond as a cornerstone of our service delivery. The Health and Wellbeing Act is mandating us to put on an equal footing the needs for adults as well as young people when it comes to safeguarding. So with an increased scope and demand, the Children's Service reconfiguration recently, and together with the space that Jane Rogers' promotion to Head of Children's Services gave rise to, we feel it's timely that this role be created. I would also like you to be aware that I attended the Adult Select meeting yesterday and can inform you that this report was both well received and endorsed by the said Select Committee. The report in 2.2 states that the members, in the recommendations now, states that the members agree to reserve fund the $60,000 for 2017 and 18. I would like, as we've done in previous reports of this nature, to alter the wording on this mandate to mandate the authority to see if, through corporate underspend, that this can be funded for the next financial year in this way, and only call on reserves if this proves unsuccessful. Either way, for subsequent years, the post will form part of the normal budget build for the Social Care Directorate. So therefore, may I suggest that we alter 2.2, Deputy Leader, please, to say, members approve that the cost pressure would be managed through the year and be the first call on any outperformance in corporate finance budgets. This, finally, is a slight departure from previous recommendations in that they have suggested that the employing directorate would be the one to manage down the commitment. But as this post is one that supports the safeguarding needs of the whole authority, then it is proper that the wider organisation bears the cost for this first year. So may I commend this, please, to colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Cabinet members, any comments, questions? No? Open it up. Councillor Petruni.
Thank you. One question. On the face of it, I support this, but usually don't we, maybe my memory's starting to fail me, too many years in cabinet maybe, is a job description used to be sent with big posts like this, so we could have an understanding of the day-to-day details of what the manager will do, what they're expected to do, what they'll be judged on. I just know the structure and a kind of brief paper. There's no job description of what we would expect from said manager.
Claire.
Yeah, I can certainly send one round. It's been job evaluated. Yeah, I can circulate one round immediately.
Councillor Taylor.
I was going to ask the same thing, but I was also going to ask, for example, it would be helpful in this particular report to understand, obviously this will contribute to the previous, item. It would have been welcome to understand, again, the priority areas that we would anticipate this post to work on, and therefore how it would contribute to improving the kind of assurance around whole authority safeguarding.
Okay, point noted on that. Any other points before we go to the vote? No? All in favour? Well, no, hang on. Let me just read out, first of all, the recommendations. Jeff, I'll ask you to read out the second one. But the first recommendation is that members approve and endorse the proposal for creation of a safeguarding and quality assurance service manager and the revised structure for the safeguarding and quality assurance service unit set out in Appendix 2 to this report. And the second recommendation is?
Okay. The second recommendation is members approve that the cost pressure would be managed through the year and be the first call on any outperformance in corporate finance budgets. Thank you.
There we have it. Members, your votes. All in favour? Thank you. Sorry. We move now on to the effectiveness of council services. This is an important report, one which we see regularly. This, in fact, is the third quarter report that we have in front of us, and it is absolutely essential that we keep tabs on how the council is doing, and in particular where we are perhaps not doing as well as we should do. And so I would draw your attention, members, to the two annexes that we have, 1 and 2. Just one point for me to bring in here. I always find that on the first annex, which is the cabinet dashboard, that the best way of looking at this is the final graph, how are we doing? Are we making progress? Is the graph going up, or are we not making progress, the graph going down? Sometimes the traffic lights can be a little confusing as to what they mean. And of course, the only graph in particular where we've got education services, the graph where we want to see it going down is when we are comparing free school meal children with non-free school meal children, where we want that gap in attainment to be dropping, getting less. And so there, we would want to see that graph going down. In other cases, the graph going up mainly. With that having been said that, it may be that members of Cabinet want to come in on their individual areas.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairman. And just picking up on your point, I was wondering if we could actually have a point of clarification, perhaps from Will McLean, because when you do look at the dashboard, if you look at the graph at the end, the yearly trend, some of those are going up when you think they should be going down. And if you look at the RAG rating, there's a lot of red there, but actually have green arrows. And I know I know in effect what it's meaning about the trend and the RAG are two different things, but I think it can lead to a little bit of confusion. So if it would be possible, Deputy Leader, to have some clarification, I think that would help the matter.
Yeah, would you like to answer that, Will?
Thank you. Will McLean, currently Interim Chief Officer in Children and Young People. Thank you, Councillor Hackett-Payne. The difference between the different parts of this particular dashboard are that the arrows in the trend column represent the progress compared to the previous year. And in terms of the education results which we're looking at now, and that's between the exams which were sat last summer, 2016, and the previous year, 2015. So the arrow relates to those, or the attendance, obviously, for the top two lines. The RAG indicator is where we have or haven't met our target that we'd set. And one of the things that we have always sought to do is to set our aspirations for our children at a very high level. So sometimes we don't always meet those targets, but you can see by the green trend arrows that in a number of situations we have actually made progress, but we haven't made the target that we set ourselves. The lines are exactly as you described, Councillor Greenland. We want to see upward trajectory for our outcomes, and we want to see a downward trajectory for the gap between our children who are eligible for free school meals and those who are not eligible for free school meals. So I hope that provides some clarity. We are well aware of the fact that our outcomes for children who are eligible for free school meals are not at a level that we would want them to be. It's something that both ourselves as the local authority, clearly our schools and our colleagues in the Education Achievement Service are working hard to make sure that we're putting the right interventions, but also the right cultural aspects in place in schools to make sure that we don't see a repeat of that in future years and we see that gap narrowing.
Thank you, Will.
May I also just add a little bit of clarity, just to say that the cohort that we're talking of here is about 747, something like that, and the free school meal is about 74, is it? So just so that it gives some context.
Councillor Burrows.
Yes. I would just like to make a couple of comments which I think will assist. Firstly, as far as the disabled facilities grant, which has obviously been a subject of great discussion for quite some time, as people know, we are in the process at the moment of providing some funding in year to help with a number of the smaller grants, and that there will be substantial funding brought for the next financial year. And that will be articulated at the Budget Council next week. The other thing I just really wanted to clarify on when we make reference to the assessments completed for children within statutory timescales, that looks rather low. I would just guard against this as a stat, because we're at the point in the financial year when a great deal of work is actually put in to actually unpick and actually go through the detail to ensure that there are no glitches in the final data before presentation. So I would really be wanting to be standing on the final outcome of that at the end of the year rather than at this point, because there is still an amount of work going on that is actually getting to the bottom of issues relating to data itself. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Unusually, we have the Head of Waste and Street Services with us today, and it would be an appropriate moment, I think, to flag up the huge progress that's been made in our recycling service. We are, if never, we are sometimes at the top and sometimes very close to the top in the order of appearance, as you might say, but very close to the top in all ways. And the other thing is that we are also the most cost-effective service in the whole of Wales. So whilst we're doing a good job and we're doing it in a financially sustainable way. So I'd like Rachel, if you'd be so kind, to take back to her team our thanks and congratulations for that.
Indeed, I'd endorse that as well. They've done a fantastic job. It's right throughout the whole of that team, from the managers to the people who are there on the coalface, so to speak, who are out in all weathers, and we are indebted to them for the performance they've given us. Councillor Batruni.
Yes, thank you. Two questions, two things I've probably discussed a lot over the years. One is education and the attainment gap. For each of the key stages, according to our own targets, we haven't hit a single target. They're all in red. And rather shockingly, foundation phase has had a little drop. And I'm just wondering what that is, because historically we've been very good at foundation phase, delivering top 1 or 2 in Wales generally, from memory. So just a little explanation of that would be useful. I appreciate it's a small cohort, but key stage 4, the huge drop again, which is again the highest in Wales, the attainment gap. And I was here for last year, the year before that, and I was assured that progress would be made, that the process was in place, robust processes, and here we are again, breaking the 40% gap. I'm just wondering what's different this time to last time in reversing this big problem for Monmouthshire County Council. And I appreciate the small cohort argument, but from my perspective, surely a smaller cohort means we can make a greater difference. Do you know what I mean? To those people on free school. Well, we haven't on Key Stage 4. We're still 41%, the highest gap in Wales, the least socially mobile county in Wales. And I don't see that as progress, personally. Maybe you guys do. I'm just wondering, a greater clarification on that would be fantastic. On vulnerable people, average days taken to disabled facilities grant. I appreciate some funding is identified in the budget. I believe from memory you're looking to further finances in next financial year, if memory serves me. But we are still seeing a massive decline there. I've read this right, nearly a year you have to wait? On average. I've talked about this year in, year out, and is the finances going to reflect the gravity of the situation now, where you have to wait a year for the almost necessary and vital structures to people's homes and adaptations?
Thank you. At this point, as it happens, we have some people from the EAS with us. So I'm going to introduce them now so that there may be the opportunity for them to come in and assist with some of the answers on this. So first of all, we have Nicola Allen, who is our Principal Challenge Advisor from the EAS, dedicated to service here in Monmouthshire. Kirsty Bevan, Assistant Director. Kevin Palmer, Assistant Director, and Geraint Willington, who is the Company Secretary and is the guru of everything financial and data-wise and all that sort of stuff. So with those, do feel free if you want to come in on some of these answers. I did hope that we'd cottoned on to the idea that actually looking at the red traffic lights can be somewhat misleading. If you set a target, and it's a challenging target, and you don't reach that target but you do well, you've still got a red traffic light, I think. And you could say that if actually all those were green, then there could be an argument we'd set our aspirations too low. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to hand over first to Will McLean, to come back on the education stuff. We'll leave the DFGs and we'll come back to those after we've had a discussion on the education topics.
Thank you again, Councillor Greenland. If I pick up the first point around the foundation phase, we did see a very, very slight reduction in the outcomes at the expected level in the foundation phase indicator last year of just 0.1%. We remained the highest performing authority in Wales for foundation phase at the expected level. It's marginal at that point in time. If we take a class, our expectation of all of those children reaching that expected level would be, bearing in mind that classes have children with additional learning needs who might have faced challenges through the year and so on. So to continue to achieve nearly 92% is a very positive outcome. Beyond that, we have seen an increase last year again in the number of children who are achieving the expected level +1. And that, when we consider the socio-economic background of children and families in Monmouthshire, is the measure that we really should be focusing on. It's that expected level +1. I think when I've discussed this with head teachers, you can expect some variability year on year in terms of the cohort, in terms of the expected level, but where our excellence in teaching and learning is really deployed, we see that increase in the children achieving the expected level +1. I think earlier on I described, what was unanimous disappointment in terms of the gap between the achievement for children with eligible for free school meals and those who are not eligible for free school meals. It is not where we'd expect it to be or where we would want it to be. The part around that is that there was differential performance across our 4 comprehensive schools. The figures also reflect a number of other settings, so they also include the children at Mountain House, the children who are in our pupil referral unit, and those children who are educated in a setting other than in school, our EOTAS pupils. So those are included in that global position. But across the 4 secondary schools, we did see differential performance this year. We saw 2 of our secondary schools improve the level of performance of their FSM cohorts, and 2 saw a decline in that level of performance. And that's something which both myself and Nicola and Kirsty have had very direct conversations with those head teachers about. I think they felt personally very challenged by the results in the summer, particularly for that vulnerable group of learners. And I think that's been a real cause of concern to those schools. And they have changed the way in which they work with those learners to make sure that they are actually reaching the standards they need to in the future. In the report that we presented to Select Committee on the 16th of February, we took members through all of the different levels of qualification, so the level 1 thresholds and level 2 thresholds. It is disappointing that we do see a fall off in attainment for those eligible for free school meals when we reach the higher levels, and that's something which we are working on. I will pass over to Nicola now, who will give you some specific information, I hope, about the work that's going on within the secondary schools that will help us close that gap.
I'm actually going to pass on to Kevin to do that.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think it's probably worth sharing with colleagues some of the details of work that we're doing, particularly with secondary schools, to address what we've always seen as the intractable impact of poverty on attainment and progress. It's a national picture. That's not an excuse for any of us. It's a very real and intractable problem. I'll just go through with you half a dozen or so of the things we're doing, particularly this year, particularly in secondary schools, that I think should give you some comfort that we're acting in a way that you consider appropriate. The first thing is on specifically a revision programme in the GCSE year 11, to enable families and communities in disadvantaged areas to support children in the run to their GCSE exams. We know this is one of the areas in which support breaks down in that last 3 or 4 months before the exams, and we've worked with Caldicott, and that's the first school to have done it, to provide the parents of free school meals children in that school with support in the very specific detailed things they can do to help children to prepare for the exams. The second thing we've done with the same cohort, the GCSE cohort, is challenge and support around schools' particular intervention designs in the GCSE year. Intervention, catch-up, whatever else you want to call it, is a specific strategy that we employ across Year 11 to ensure that pupils who are falling behind catch up before the exams. And we've had people working in all 4 schools in Monmouthshire on the way that they design and deliver intervention. We've also looked at secondary middle leadership, and particularly middle leadership in the math, science and English departments in schools in Monmouthshire, and that's being led by King Henry, and that's having an impact on middle leadership behaviour already in those schools. Nearly there, 2 more to go. Some colleagues will know that Chepstow School has been involved in Achievement for All for some time, and that's had a significant impact on the infrastructural behaviour of Chepstow School. And now that's become that Chepstow School and its cluster have become a specific focus for a well-being project in the school and in the cluster of schools surrounding it. We think that will have an effect in Key Stage 4, though not Year 11, but it'll certainly have an effect in Key Stage 3. And then finally this year, we're running a refresher programme around our Sutton Trust Toolkit CPD programme that we ran 2 years ago and had a significant impact on practice in that year. Now, we thought that impact had stuck. It's become pretty clear that it hasn't stuck and it needs to be done again. So we'll be doing that again from next week for the rest of the school year.
Sorry, you haven't finished, have you?
Sorry, forgive me. Yeah, thank you.
You have. How fortuitous that you are here to answer in the way that you did. We might be inviting you back for every meeting if you're not careful. And thank you also to Will for the explanations you've given. There's still the issue of the Disabled Facilities Grant, so I'll hand over to Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. And as we know, the issue has been for some time that the team ran out of money very, very quickly, so there's a great delay, and of course so the figures look awful because they're waiting for the next tranche of money. We have asked officers to do quite a bit of work on this, which is progressing nicely, and we, as you know, we've already allocated 30,000 in the current year to some quick fixes. We're identifying now the amount of money that needs to be set in the next budget, and I shall be making an announcement about that when we have the budget, the council's tax setting meeting on the 9th, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Burrows wants to come in again.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader. I just wanted to add a minor point to that yes, we are looking to find a way of actually providing more capital to actually start to address this, but we must also be aware that these the vast amount of this money is on some rather large projects for individuals who actually have some very serious disabilities that we're trying to help address. And that's not only just providing the grant money, that's then in getting involved with architects, builders, getting planning permissions for very substantial adaptations to properties. So even when we get to a point where these numbers start coming down because we're now able to manage better, there will still always be weeks and months with some of these projects coming to completion. So I wouldn't be expecting any time soon for it to be coming down from the date it is now, the time it is now, to a matter of days or a few weeks, because these are quite substantial projects that are undertaken. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. In terms of the dashboard, I appreciate that it can look however it can look, but I just wondered whether Cabinet felt that they are able to extract the information they need from the dashboard. I didn't find it that easy personally, but I guess Cabinet members are more used to looking at it on a regular basis, and whether they felt it gave them the granularity they require to really see. So, you know, we've had some explanation about the different interventions in different schools, for example, or the different performances. I just wondered if you know, where that was. But also, understand how the RAG rating works versus the trends. But we still are in a position where there are 15 areas where we're either amber or red, which means we've got, you know, some performance to catch up. versus 10 in green. So I wondered, what the broad view of that was. And the third question is related to, I was interested to hear about the interventions in the different schools. And I just wondered how that reads across to the issue of, a teacher assessments where we're looking at teacher assessments. The young people are performing better, in foundation phase, key stage 2, 3, and then by the time we get to key stage 3 and 4, well, 4 mainly, that performance seems to drop off more dramatically than one would expect given the socioeconomic makeup of the county. If we're going to use that as a proxy measure. And I just wondered if there was any information around that or intelligence. And I was interested to hear about the way that you target the interventions, because when you're talking about closing the gap at Key Stage 4 between free school meal pupils and non-free school meal pupils, actually it looks quite different in some of our schools in Monmouthshire than it does in other counties. And I just took some reassurance that those interventions are very much tailored to the school. That's right, isn't it? I just wanted to check that. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. On a general point, I think that, yes, you would expect Cabinet to understand their own dashboard and how to read it. But I do take your point that it may, well, in fact, you've actually demonstrated that it's not so easy for other people who aren't looking at it at the same time, because you can get fixated on those traffic lights and not look at all the details behind that. But on specific points, is there anybody who wishes to come and help Councillor Taylor in her understanding?
Well, I would talk to him, yes, if you like.
Well, first of all, we'll take Phil. Phil Hobson, Councillor Hobson. Thank you.
I'm going to say deputy leader to another. There's only two of us at the moment. Might not be for much longer, but I just want to make particular reference to the DFGs, or the disability facility grants. I was going to take issue about this because we've had these discussions this week, and what's reflected in there is not my experience. And I've had several, actually, about more than 5 of these in the past 12 months with constituents in my own ward. Average time has been less than 2 weeks from initial referral, visit and completion of work. Bearing in mind these have been small works. I do know of one that's taking a long time, but of course from referral to completion of the job is what you're looking at. If it's a big job and it's complicated, needs a bit of reconstruction, what happens is you want to keep independent living. It basically, that one can actually stretch the whole statistic out. It is, you asked about, are you comfortable with this? Yeah, in particular the RAG settings. I think the RAG settings are a bit of a, I'm going to say, red herring, because Appendix 1 shows you all the traffic lights, and that's misleading, or can mislead you. And as you said yourself, you can read the statistics how you want. Because bang next door, the most important thing is not your snapshot in time, which is your quarter of 1 year, it's your trend line. And you know that, and I know that. I mean, so whereas you've got some red lines, right next to it, I've got improvements in some key stages of education, where year on year it goes up, 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 up. So sustained, strong improvement, yet there's a red line. A red light. Not helpful. However, when I go to Appendix 2, which is the next set, it tells a different story because it's more about trend. And of course, you've got different light system there, which says you've got, green for improved or at maximum, yellow marginal improvement, orange unchanged. I'm reading these out for the benefit of anybody watching or might be viewing later on. Blue is marginal decline and red declined. Of those 35, 3 have shown did not perform to expectation, and a full 13 improved beyond or resulted beyond expectation. So is it about the snapshot, the RAG settings, i.e. those traffic lights, which I think are actually, you can get caught on those and doesn't tell you the story. So basically you've got to read the whole thing and understand the information, and it's trend that's more important rather than just taking a picture of where we were on a particular day at the end of a quarter of a particular year. That is not helpful. The trend line is where I've always gone on. And as you can see, you've got some red lights that say danger, but actually when you look at the trend line, it says year on year, very strong improvement. It's just one of those quirks of that particular system. But I am perfectly satisfied with the information as presented, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Phil. In a moment, I'm going to ask the authors of the reports to come in. That's Richard Jones, Sian Schofield, whether they want to make any comments. But before they do, does anybody else want to come in at this point? Nicola Allen.
I was going to pick up on Councillor Taylor's point about teacher assessment and the change over time going through to Key Stage 4. Absolutely, Councillor Taylor, we recognise that at Key Stage 4 our aspirations for the young people aren't yet being met. In order to achieve the level 2 inclusive, we still have work to do, but it's not all solved in Year 11. I think you referenced briefly accuracy of teacher assessment, and one of the pieces of work that the EAS undertakes is to moderate and support schools in checking the accuracy of teacher assessment. By and large, when we compare for Monmouthshire test and teacher assessment, it is broadly and nearly all accurate. We are aware that there are schools where we're less certain around the accuracy of teacher assessment. It's part of the schools that receive a high level of support, where we're ensuring that teachers' assessment is as accurate as it might be. But yes, we'd like to see a better match between CSI at Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 and final outcomes at Level 2 inclusive at Key Stage 4. That's what we're working towards. You're quite right, there is more to do.
Thank you for that. And Richard Jones.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and thank you, I think, for all the contributions in terms of the display of the information. We are trying to bring together a lot of detailed information across different service areas, and I take the point we're trying to do a lot in terms of not just looking at trends year on year, we're looking at target rags, and we're also looking at yearly trends. I think it's something, certainly from feedback, I think from everyone today, we can look to see if we can revise some of this and bring together the information in a better way to give not just Cabinet, but also anyone who was looking at information, clearer understanding of the data. As you said, I know Cabinet members understand the detail, but we've still got further work to do in terms of making sure everyone can look at it and understand actually what it means. So I think that's the key point we've taken from today. Just really to emphasise the difference between the two appendices. The Appendix A is looking at key measures we see as important and Cabinet members have decided are important in terms of monitoring the Council's priorities and progress. And Appendix 2 is those which have been set by Welsh Government for us to report on in terms of national performance indicators. So that's the difference between the two appendices, but we'll take very useful points today in terms of display of information and make sure we can consider that in the future reports.
Thank you, Richard. Any other comments before we go to the recommendations? Okay, the recommendations are that Cabinet use this report to help their continuous monitoring and evaluation of the effectiveness of services and the extent to which they are contributing to the Council's priorities of education of children, support for vulnerable people, enterprise and job creation, and maintaining locally accessible services. The second recommendation, that Cabinet use this report as an opportunity to identify any action that may need to be taken to drive improvement, ensuring that services are as effective and efficient as possible in the context of current resources. So those are the two recommendations. I think this has actually been a very useful debate that we've had, and thank you for everybody to contributing. All in favour? Thank you. And actually, it's a very useful opening to our next report, which we're bringing up the agenda, the EAS business case. Oh, sorry, what's that? 4A, we've passed the wrong recommendation. So let's see what again?
Instead of reading that, you take the recommendation for that one, the one we just done. So you just need to do that again first of all.
okay, I've read the wrong recommendation, so let's see if I can find it. Okay, note the progress and challenge the the self-assessment of the whole authority safeguarding coordinating group, and support the intention to focus the safeguarding programme approved by the Council in July 16 against the key priority areas. So that is the recommendation for the safeguarding report. So if we now move on to the EAS report. Monmouthshire County Council has a statutory responsibility for school improvement, just like every other local authority has. But for the past few years, we have joined with our neighbours in Blaenau Gwent, in Caerphilly, Torfaen and Newport to provide a specialist school improvement service. We've brought together particular experts in the field who advise us and help us moving forward. And the way they've worked has proved exceptionally effective over the last few years. As we can see from the previous report, there's still work to be done. But this is a company, and I should stress a company, that has been set up to act on behalf of all the 5 authorities. It is therefore the relationship between us is a bit like a client and contractor. Monmouthshire County Council is the client, and the EAS is the contractor that provides the services that we ask it to do. Those services are detailed within the annual business plan. There is one plan that covers the whole of the 5 authorities, and then there is an annex for each local authority that brings those forward. It has been through, the business plan has been through a process both within the EAS and indeed within the council here, and in particular responsibility is held by the acting head of, or the acting chief officer for education and the cabinet member. And with that, I'll actually pass over to the cabinet member.
Thank you very much. Yes, this has gone through a process of quite a lot of scrutiny with the other cabinet members within the 5 authority areas. I think in some ways we've been through it. We've discussed how this helps the South East region as a whole and each of those particular areas. So I recommend this to Cabinet, and I think it is an excellent report as it shows where we're going for the future, where we've come from, and in some ways it answers many of the questions that have been answered before.
Thank you, Liz, and I'll hand over to our representatives from the EAS, and I think Kirsty, you starting off?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Greenland. Good afternoon, everyone. As Councillor Hackett-Payne stated, this report presents the EAS business plan for 2017 to 2020, and it sets out within it the priorities, programmes and outcomes to be achieved by the EAS on behalf of the South East Wales Consortium. It also focuses upon the expected outcomes in Monmouthshire, which are contained within the local authority annex. So the recommendation from our report today is that Cabinet endorse the EAS business plan along with the local authority annex. I plan to take you through this report, focusing on high-level information and really just to give you some background information too. We are required, the EAS is required, to submit to Welsh Government a 3-year plan that needs to be updated annually. This is the 4th iteration of the plan, first submitted back in 2013. So this plan covers the period 2017 to 2020. The local authority annex then focuses on the specific areas that require improvement within Monmouthshire. It's a regional plan, and the EAS has continued to strengthen its systems and processes to continue to improve pupil outcomes as a result of ongoing evaluation. Within the business plan, there are overall targets to be achieved by the EAS, working in partnership with the 5 local authorities, and the programmes of work to achieve these outcomes are set out in detail. The targets for schools in Monmouthshire are contained within the local authority annex. You'll note that all amber and red schools, so those requiring the highest levels of support, are noted within the annex and are subject to regular scrutiny of progress, both through intervention meetings in our red schools and Education Improvement Board meetings in our amber schools. In addition, all schools, with the exception of green schools, have or are in receipt of bespoke support packages based on their school needs. It is important to note as well, under 4.3, that the EAS business plan sets out clear priorities. It would come as no surprise to you that our main aim is to raise aspiration, to improve pupil outcomes for all learners, particularly those EFSM pupils and our more able learners, and to reduce the variance across schools and local authorities. The business plan has also been aligned to a number of policies which are detailed under 4.4. And we've also, under 5, in terms of resource implication, detailed the finances, and the table that you have illustrates the local authority's core contribution costs over time since 2012. In terms of consultation, as Councillor Greenland stated, it is really important to note that the plan has been developed in consultation with a wide range of key stakeholders. They've all been listed under 7.1, and their feedback has really been taken into account in the development of this final version of the plan. You do have 2 background papers to this report, 8.1 and 8.2, which is the EAS business plan and the local authority annex. Both documents were presented by Nicola to the Select Committee on the 16th of February, and feedback from that meeting has been taken into account. In terms of both of those documents, we'd be more than happy to take any questions from Cabinet.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsty. Will, would you like to come in at this point with anything?
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. I think just to echo the Cabinet member for Education's comments and those of Kirsty, really, I think that the process, and it's the first time I've been involved in the actual commissioning design of the EAS business plan, and I think the process, which started with a very open and transparent workshop we held with the EAS and all of the directors and assistant directors across Gwent before Christmas, really set the tone, I think, for the aspiration and a different shape of business plan this year compared to previous years. And I think that was a really important starting point. But the whole process has been very open. I think we have a clear understanding of where our schools are and the type of intervention and support they need to see them progress. And at the moment, there is much alignment between the regional picture and our own, particularly around closing the gap and the achievement and attainment of our more able and talented children. I think just a couple of comments, if I could, just on the specific Monmouthshire annex. One of the things which is included in there, which this is in essence the formal Cabinet sign-off of the targets for the next years. I think it would be remiss of me not to note that for Key Stage 4 targets, it might be this year inappropriate to have an expectation of linear progression at Key Stage 4. This is the first year that there will be new exams for English and maths, and we have to wait and see how those examinations bed down. So I think it's really important for everyone to recognise that this is a potential year of change, and there might well be volatility in the exams that we see in the summer. So I think that's one thing that I would note there, just because that might happen. The same has to be said for the foundation phase outcomes at the higher level as well. So there are changes that take place in the broader context that will impact on the aspirations that we have set. And the final point really is just on the very specific actions which are at the end on page 10 of the second annex, which is around the specific support for Monmouthshire schools, which is variable to the main part of the business case. And that's was being done in discussion with Nicola, and really to understand about the strength of the school-to-school support that exists within Monmouthshire, and how we're looking to make sure that we broker that to a greater extent, so that we can make use of our growing number of green schools to support schools that are not yet a green or yellow. But furthermore, we can really use that to support children who are more able to achieve the results that we want them to achieve as well.
Thank you, Will. Cabinet members, any comments you wish to make? No? Okay, Councillor Batruni.
I think quickly Francis Taylor has to declare an interest.
Sorry, Chair. I should declare an interest as a governor of a school mentioned in the report, which is Mega Church in Wells Priority, just for matter of probity.
And is that a personal interest, personal prejudicial?
I think that ordinarily we, I mean, I'm not engaged in the decision making, but we don't usually require it to be a prejudicial interest when we discuss general support to governors. I don't think it's prejudicial in this context, Chair, but I'm happy to take advice from Rob.
Do you want me to help on that one, Chairman, please? You're not a local authority appointed governor here, are you? You are, okay. So in that context, it's definitely personal and non-prejudicial. But furthermore, Chairman, in respect of this report, it's not specifically about that school, it's about the county-wide, indeed, South East Wales-wide. So the interest is just personal.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Councillor Batruni.
Yes, it might become specific about that school in a minute. I've read the plan, and I really might have missed this, and it might be obvious, and I hope you can point it out to me. Where does it discuss anywhere additional learning needs children? And I have a couple other questions. Yeah, okay, fair enough. If you could point it to me, great, because I would love to read it. On the Monmouthshire Pacific Appendix, there's two questions I would like to ask. One is, why is Mega Primary School in red? That's why I've made sure Francis declared an interest. And secondly, a point of clarification on page 10. EAS to support MCC secondary schools to broker support from beyond the LA local authority. Can you tell me what kind of support you'll be brokering outside of the local authority, please?
Will McLean.
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. With regards to the additional learning needs, that's something which is the responsibility of the local authority. And that's the work that we are currently doing. We're involved in a significant review of our additional learning needs provision across the county, which is being facilitated by an external expert in that area, but is something which is very much jointly owned by both the local authority and the schools. That work is ongoing. It's our intention for that report to be concluded, ready for a new administration to consider the outcomes and the findings of. It's a really, really important piece of work. We know that the challenges in our schools are changing, the needs of children are changing, and the types of presentation of additional learning needs are changing over time as well. And that's something that we are very aware of. There is also new legislation in place. The Additional Learning Needs Bill has been tabled by the Welsh Government, and that's something with a new code of conduct that we are working alongside at the same time. So that's why additional learning needs is not included in this business case. With regards to Mega School, Mega School's categorisation as a red school, I think it's important once again just to reiterate that the fact that the categorisation is about the level of support that a school needs. It's not a judgment on the school or its performance, and I think it's really important to note that that Mega is a step 1 for outcomes, so that's the highest grade it could be. It's a C for its prospects for improvement, and we do believe that there is work to be done supporting the school in terms of how it organises itself to improve. Earlier on, in an earlier discussion, Councillor Taylor referred to a differentiation between teacher assessment and national tests. That was one of the issues that arose last year and gave us some cause for concern. As a consequence of discussions between ourselves, the AS, and a national moderation exercise, it was determined that the school did require the highest level of support for this year. The one thing I would just say as well is that we have had schools in the past who have been red schools and have made rapid progress from that category. I'd note Pembroke this year moved from a red school last year to a yellow school this year, and we would be hopeful that with sustained intervention and the guidance from colleagues in the AS, the local authority and a new challenge advisor, that Mega School will make similar progress. On to the final point, which is with regards to brokering support beyond the local authority. I think one of the things which we were very conscious of when we received last year's particularly Key Stage 4 examination results was that whilst our schools didn't perform at the level at which we had hoped, I think it would be fair to say that across the EAS there weren't any standout schools achieving a level of attainment that we would really want our schools to look to. Some of the schools, I know schools such as Basleg in Newport and so on, achieve slightly higher outcomes than our schools, but not in the kind of the step change category that I think we were really looking for some of our schools. There are schools, however, in Central South Wales and in the Eru area where they have made real progress over a period of time, and that simply refers to the fact that at times it's a good idea to look beyond your local borders, even sometimes beyond our national borders, to understand what great practice looks like and the impact that can have on the achievements that our children can attain in the future.
Thank you, Will. On to Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief observation and question. I note that throughout the business plan element of the report, there are only, I think, probably 2 references to governors in terms of the priorities and, areas for focus for EAS. Now, notwithstanding our EAS provide the initial governor training and things like the governor conferences and peer-to-peer governor support. I just wonder, or is there perhaps something I haven't picked up on, where there's, in terms of governors being an important part of the whole school leadership, where the focus on supporting the whole governing body in a school around developing their leadership style and, supporting improvements, I guess, in the outcomes for the children in the school. I didn't see very many references to that, and I assume that's not a focus, but I just was interested to find out. Thank you.
I think actually that's a good question on governing bodies. Kevin.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really important observation, actually. I would say that the business plan, as you've seen it, doesn't reflect the degree to which the EAS invests in governor support. People who are governors are aware of that and the role that we play in delivering services to governors. So I think 2 things. Firstly, I'll take on board that what I think is a suggestion that we could make more of that in the way we report to this cabinet and to others. And secondly, I think to take back a sense that our perception that governors are an important part of the school improvement journey and profile of a school probably needs to be more explicit and clear in the way we express ourselves. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you. I was just going to add, I don't know if you attended the annual Governors' Conference, because in effect, anybody who did felt very looked after by the EAS as being a governor, and also an awful lot of information was given about how, whether you be a chair of governors or just an ordinary governor, how you can access the training and the support from the EAS. Also, how you can help develop new apps we were looking at on that particular day for training. So I pick up the point you make about it being in here, and I think in practice, I think there is a lot of support for governors, but it probably does need to be in the business case.
Okay, I'll come back to Kirsty in a minute, but I know Councillor Taylor wants to say something else, and it may be that you can answer 2 things at once.
I think that is true. There is investment in governors on that level, and there is support perhaps to obviously in particular you'd have support to the chair of governors and other governors playing a role like the chair of the finance committee. But my observation is more about the whole governing body as a leadership mechanism, really, and the degree to which the current practices and the priorities are around recognising that all governors will have, there's no difference in terms of their status. They have a level of responsibility that they all share. So it's just really an observation about the whole
Kirsty.
governing body. Thank you.
Thank you. Really just to reassure Cabinet, that in terms of leadership development for the whole governing body, that should be within each school's bespoke support plan or package. So if, for example, a school is red, it will receive up to 25 days of support, and that governing body development will be integral to that plan and should be integral to that plan. And also to point you in the direction of the additional supporting documents that sit within the business plan. There's a reference point 5 on page 18 of my document that talks about the professional learning offer. And within the professional learning offer, governor support and what's available in terms of the professional learning offer for governors would be detailed within that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Any more observations, questions before we go to the vote? No? Okay, the recommendation is a fairly simple one, that we endorse this EA business plan and the Monmouthshire Annex that's with it. All in favour? Thank you. And thank you, all 4 of you, for attending. You're welcome, of course, to stay, but if you wish to go, that would be quite acceptable. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item, which is Waste and Street Services, Establishment Changes, Tweaking to Transform. Councillor Jones, would you like to give us a little bit of information on tweaking?
I'll see what I can help you with. I didn't necessarily want anybody to hear that. This report seeks approval for changes to the establishment and staffing structure within Waste and Street Services. Importantly, the changes are within the current funding envelope, and I believe will give the service a strong foundation to continue to deliver the quality of service our residents already receive. Before I go into detail, I first of all would like Cabinet to formally thank Tim Bradfield for his hard work and dedication. Yeah. Tim, unfortunately, has left us, but I know his departure was the right thing for him at the time. Tim had 39 years service with the council, which takes a bit of believing. As a sort of man and boy, wasn't it? And his knowledge and commitment to doing right by the public was second to none. He'll be sorely missed, and he has a hard gap to fill. A lot of these changes are about how the service can deliver in the light of Tim's departure and the knowledge he has taken with him. These changes have been proposed on the back of a thorough review of need within the service. Over the past few years, the service has delivered a plethora of initiatives which have improved service performance and contributed to the saving requirements of the council. There have been major cuts in posts, and therefore it is important that remaining staff have absolute clarity on role, purpose and priorities. The review identified that the service was focused on delivering the right thing, but that sometimes progress was delayed as multiple priorities were often the responsibility of the same posts or number of posts. An example of this is that the management of around 3 million of commercial activity is aligned with the operational responsibilities of delivering everyday service and overseeing the safety and quality of work of 150 colleagues. At the end of the day, the reactive and public-facing requirements of everyday services will always take over the longer-term strategic work of commercial growth. The review demonstrated a need to simplify and give more targeted roles within a culture of teamwork, cooperation, and everyone working towards the same goal. That is, delivering effective and efficient services which keep Monmouthshire clean and tidy. The head of service has undertaken 2 consultations with her team. The first was on ensuring the priorities were the right ones, and a second on how the team structure aligned and delivered those priorities. The 3 priorities are enabling our frontline service to deliver well, systems and commercial. Our services and our staff are the most important thing. Waste and grounds are the services on which we as a council get judged. I can't praise our staff enough. I think they do a brilliant job every day, often not in the best of weathers. This structure will ensure they have the support they need and allow colleagues working in operations to focus on operations. Issues such as health and safety and quality assurance are too important to get wrong. By removing some of the multiple facets of existing roles, we allow for greater focus and support for frontline service delivery. An important part of the changes is the proposal for now for the training centre to move away from a trading entity. The training centre has struggled in the face of competition and a move by local authorities to insource as training budgets get ever tighter. The proposal is to use the existing resource that we have to take over the complete training programme for highways, waste, grounds and Sutra, and also become a resource also focused on well-being, succession planning and health and safety. As reported corporately, the organisation has prioritised attendance management and waste, in particular for some of the highest rates of sickness within the council. As well as managing these cases effectively, it is also important that frontline services have the resource to proactively look at causation, looking at how we mitigate and support colleagues to achieve maximum attendance and also ensure colleagues' well-being is being delivered and protected. This structure will enable that to happen. Aligned to the Council's IT modernisation strategy has been the stated intention to modernise the connectivity within the front line. Progress has been made, but has been one of many things to be delivered. Over 17-18, the services aren't facing any major changes, and therefore, with a role earmarked to work on this and the special projects, the service will have the capacity to deliver. And finally, the commercial operation. Almost 2.75 million per annum of income is built into baseline budgets for both waste and grounds. This is not a small commercial operation. The proposal to focus and separate commercial from operations is a recognition of the work of the existing staff. It has just come to saturation point and a recognition that both ops and commercial activity need time and resource both deserve. The creation of a commercial entity overseeing the already existing commercial posts will give the future strategy capacity and energy. It is also important for Cabinet to note that as well as focusing on WSS, this is also a resource to operate on a strategic level across all of operations. By WSS, I meant Waste and Street Services. In light of ever diminishing budgets, the Council must look to fund current service delivery from other avenues. This post will help other sections within operations with their commercial aspirations and identify how existing client relationships can be developed and maximised. At the beginning of this, I paid tribute to Tim Bradfield. His public-facing work is as important as ever, and the creation of an environment post within the strategy section will ensure that this work is still prioritised. Helping colleagues with tree queries, working with volunteers in friends groups, and working in partnership with leisure colleagues on how green space is managed and maintained by the Council and its partners is very important. We are confident that the creation of this post will build on the legacy left by Tim and hopefully do him justice. Given the depth of previous cuts, these changes are not about delivering more savings, nor is there a negative impact on headcount or intended salaries. The proposals ensure that each member of staff within the service have a role allocated to them, albeit there will be proper processes to be followed for new posts. The proposal comes within the existing funding envelope, and I therefore propose to Cabinet that the report is accepted and the service thanked for their hard work and quality of service they provide every day.
Thank you, Brian. First of all, yes, I would certainly like to endorse the words that you've spoken about Tim Bradfield, and I'm sure that all other members of the Cabinet would join me in that. And as I said earlier, we are grateful to the whole of the service. And of course, if we are to remain as the authority which provides the best value for money for waste services in Wales, then this sort of tweaking is necessary to take us forward. And so I welcome this report. Are there any comments from Cabinet members? No. Nope. Councillor Petruni.
Yeah, broadly welcome the report. Just two questions. Moving away from the training centre to moving away from the trading model of the training centre, presumably this has been built into the financial model and into the budget. I was wondering what is do we expect a loss of income, and how much of a loss of income do we expect?
There are all sorts of issues here around income from training, or not, as the case may be. There's also an issue over council accommodation. Perhaps Rachel could fill you in on that.
Okay, and our second question is on the commercial side with the new commercial manager. Do we have any idea of what areas we believe are opportunities for growth? Presumably we're having a manager because we think there are opportunities for growth and to increase our turnover. I'm just wondering what they are.
Again, I'll hand that over to Rachel.
Thank you. Rachel Jowett, Head of Waste and Street Services. Thank you, Council and Cabinet, for the comments regarding the team. I'll make sure that they're sent the link and sort of told of your praise for them. I think they're fantastic, and it's an absolute pleasure to lead them. With regards to the training centre, you'll see from previous budget monitoring reports, it has continually faced pressures and it is only getting harder. Unfortunately, the provision of the barriers that are on the trunk roads, we lost the contract for that. We were operating in a commercial world. We lost the training provision, and that went elsewhere, which was a loss of income source to us. And we are seeing that councils are now looking to insource their training provision. It wasn't a decision we took lightly, but it has been facing pressures and has been struggling. And in terms of the absolute budget impact for 17-18, the training centre within Joy's model was due to forecast to bring in an additional 30,000. That will now be added onto the grounds maintenance income targets that we'll be looking at. And that neatly leads on to the next bit. We've actually, we have on the grounds activity a lot of commercial activity. We've got 80% of the schools, we've got the Aneurin Bevan contract, we've got the Gwent Police contract, we do all the MHA maintenance, we do the Bron Avon sheltered homes, we're going into Torvine schools, we also do most of the playground installations for new developments from here to the Forest of Dean all the way over to Carmarthenshire. So we've already got quite a scale of commercial activity, and as I've said, that has been alongside the operations manager also overseeing a workforce of 150, which we have to come to the point is almost a victim of its own success. So the commercial manager will have all of that to oversee, plus also the trade waste service, which again serves over 400 customers a year for trade waste collections. So there's already an existing business which needs developing, nurturing, sustaining. On the back of that, we are having a piece of work done at the moment to look at where are and if there are opportunities for growth, particularly for the grounds maintenance section. Like we've often thought, what about the industrial estates down in the south of the county? Who's cleaning those? Who's maintaining those? You know, it's also important now, and I know the Chief Executive has reminded me, we only do this commercial activity where it is the right place for us to do so, and for us to also, you know, we shouldn't be undermining the local private sector as well. It's got to be that niche role for us. So that's going to be the role of the commercial manager, is to really look at that and to harness that, because this is income which is supporting core MCC services now, and it's essential then that it gives the time and attention. MHA's contract is up on the 31st of March 2018. Gwent Police are looking at theirs again. Schools constantly need wooing and, you know, to keep them on board. We've got town and community council, so it is that onward climb. That's what the commercial manager is going to be doing. We've done well so far, but there are simple things that we just need some more energy and presence on.
Okay, thank you for that. And where do we go from here? Councillor Petrunier? No, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Just one question, really. I note that there's a £2.75 million turnover. Can you just tell me what the surplus currently is on that turnover? Because obviously there is a huge amount of work going on, and to generate that kind of turnover, one has to invest a lot of time, energy, and I just wonder what the position is, because that sounds quite a lot of money. Is there any surplus at the moment? And will that, presumably, the investment is not necessarily to increase our, commercially for commercial sake, it's to run services, obviously, but I just wonder where we are. That's the point of the commercial arm, I guess. And I just suppose that I'm sure everybody would understands the pressures and welcomes an innovative approach, but it's just a reassurance that our core services will remain, because the good relationships, the recycling levels, the way in which the high regard in which the operation staff are held in our communities is because of the good services that they deliver to citizens. So I suppose, well, actually it's two questions really. First of all, is there a surplus? Secondly, can we be assured that those core services that are so important to citizens will remain and improve? Thank you.
Okay, who's going to answer that? Rachel?
Regard to profit or underspend, this year both waste and grounds are reporting underspends. We might turn them profits on their position. With regard to the waste situation, we are not allowed to make a profit by law. We're only allowed to cover costs, but we do have to provide a trade waste service if requested, and I can tell you that that does cover cost. Within the grounds, there are some of the activities which are profit-making, which then lead to their reported month 9 position was £100,000 underspent. So, i.e. profit for the year. The work we are doing, though, is to get into a lot more of the detail and the figures to understand, particularly it's easy on our external contracts where we have set teams, but for some of the in-county commercial activity, when we're cutting one stretch within a town, we might be doing MCC land, a school, a community council, a developer. It's then assessing that we are sort of covering costs. And the reason we are doing this is to try and sustain the level of service that we currently do. That is sort of the reason why this activity is undertaken.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, can I just underline the fact that if we do make surpluses on our other activities, it doesn't detract or take away the ability to deliver frontline services. It's how we do it.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, if there's Chief Executive.
Could I just add one piece? I think Councillor Taylor was in arguably the right territory and potentially a good candidate for the position. One of a number of questions that we're asking of ourselves right now is, when you truly use the word commercial, several people in this room operate commercially in other walks of life. Turnover is a lot of fun, be it 2.5 million, 10 million or 30 million pounds. It means nothing unless the margin's acceptable. So the question that we're asking ourselves, I think, with perhaps more degrees of discipline that maybe has been necessary in the past, possibly, is, are the margins that we are returning on this work acceptable to us? I'm not overly interested in turning £2.5 million into to £3.5 million if we're making £5 for all of the effort. If we're making £50,000, £500,000, then that effort becomes more worthwhile. And I think, as Rachel has accurately said, this is directly related to maintaining the service that we provide in Monmouthshire. Every pound either needs to be generated or we don't have it. So it's about the discipline of commercialism that I think that Rachel is looking to bring into her service even more than has been the case up until this point in time. That discipline will also, in time, move beyond waste and street scene into other aspects of the operations function, but we have to start somewhere.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, come in there, Deputy Leader. Something I was told many years ago by my father was, never mind the turnover, what's the leftover? And that's very significant.
I think that's what I was just trying to get at, because if we're making an enormous investment in an area with our staff and our resources, then it must be obviously worthwhile in the sense that we are sustaining, improving our services, and not just doing it because we've always done it, or we've started to do it and it seems like a good idea. I am reassured that discipline, but I just wanted to ask the Chief Executive what he meant when he said he mentioned being a candidate for something, and I started to worry at that point what he meant.
My meaning was you asked a very good question. And we'll be looking to appoint a commercial manager, and I hope the candidates that come forward for that position have a similar mindset.
Right.
I suspect you might be a candidate for something else in the short term, so I wasn't relating the two things.
Right, okay, we'll move on. The recommendations are that we approve the proposed structure and changes to the core establishment. We approve that minor adjustments, which may result when staff consultation has concluded, be delegated to the head of Waste and Street Services, following consultation with the Cabinet Member for Operations, on the proviso that the funding envelope, as outlined, is maintained. All in favour? Thank you. We now move on to Kingfisher Rise Section 106 funding. This is a report that comes, and it entirely deals with the areas of Mega and Undy. And it is an area of the council which we had identified previously as being short of outdoor recreation facilities. So it's a particular pleasure to actually have this report in front of us. And to take us through it, Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. And for clarity, the report that's before us is not the one in the public agenda pack. It's the one that was subsequently issued, and that's the one I'm referring to now. And the purpose of that report is to agree the allocation of the Section 106 monies in respect of offside recreation funding from that Kingfisher Rise, the Mega West development site. The recommendation is that a capital budget of £219,710 be created in 2017-18 to contribute towards the costs of the projects that are set out in 2.2 of the report, funded by a corresponding contribution from the Section 106 balances held by the Council, in that £73,236.50 be allocated to each of the three projects, those projects being the Three Fields site development, the Sycamore Field recreation improvements, and the Undy playing fields improvements. And the report goes into some detail as to what each of those comprises, and I don't propose to go through that now. It's quite clear from the report just what's proposed. But we need to set an appropriate time limit for commencement on these projects in view of the short time left for funding. Some of this money has been in for some time, and we really do need to get on with these projects if they're going to go ahead successfully. Therefore, it's proposed to require that all business plans must be submitted and approved by the Cabinet Member for Resources and the Head of Finance by the 31st of December 17. And I think it's important to alter recommendation 2.3 to have the extra line. Don't propose to alter it as it stands. Just add an extra sentence, and that would be that all business plans must be submitted and approved by the Cabinet Member for Resources and the Head of Finance by the 31st of December 2017. And I think that will add some urgency to the projects, concentrate everybody's minds, because the last thing we want to do is to have any delays that result in any loss of the funding which is available. Mike Moran's here to answer any detailed questions, but as I said, Deputy Leader, it is a very comprehensive report. The proposals in respect of each of the three sites are well set out there, so I invite questions.
Any questions, Cabinet Members? Perhaps, Mike, would you like at this point to come in and say anything, or are you satisfied with where we are?
No, thank you, Leader. I think I'm satisfied with the explanation that Councillor Murphy has given. It is important to get on with them, as Councillor Murphy has said, because the money does have a shelf life, and although 2019 sounds a long way off, in reality it isn't when it comes to commissioning major projects like this.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Councillor Petruni.
My question was just been answered, and I support all this.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you most graciously for accepting my suggestions around the timescales and the sign off of this. I think that all Cabinet members will be aware that there's a significant backstory to where we are here, and so having some urgency and expediency around this is probably extremely important. I just wanted to say that. In addition to that, I mean, it would be welcome and it would be helpful to note that the long term is around developing a facility on the Three-Field site, as is noted in the report, which will be designed and built by the council, with the council's lead. And I think that it's important to think that all of these matters need to be tied together effectively if we're going to create the best strategic benefit for the communities of Mago with Dundee, which, as Councillor Greenland has quite rightly pointed out, has a significant deficit in adult recreation facilities. And so that the Section 106 monies, or any planning gain or whatever that becomes, SIL or not, in the future, are aligned to ensuring that the facilities provided on the Three-Field site are done in a very thoughtful way with regard to tying things together, and with the future 106s that may become available from the council's strategic site. And I'd really like to request that the council facilitate dialogue between the three project leads, if you like, to ensure, because they're not mutually exclusive and they will require a degree of understanding what the other is doing to bring the most benefit. So that is my final request, but I do welcome Councillor Murphy's additional recommendation, and I think that's really important in making sure that this comes forward effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm guessing there isn't a question from that necessarily. So I do take on board the suggestion that we work, and I'm sure Mike Moran will work with all three projects in the way that is absolutely essential. Okay, so the recommendations are that a capital budget of 219,710 be created in 2017 to contribute towards the cost of the projects set out in 2.2 below, and that this is funded by a corresponding contribution from Section 106 balances held by the County Council in respect of Kingfisher Rise Development Mega, Finance Code number N579. To two, that £73,236.50 be allocated to each of the following three projects, and that officers work closely with the organisations concerned to help bring the projects to fruition. Three-Field site development, Sycamore Field recreation improvements, and Undie playing field improvements. that the grants to Undy Athletic Club and Mago with Undy Community Council be made subject to the Council Standard Section 106 terms and conditions, and subject to the respective applicants submitting, in advance of any payments being released, a satisfactory business plan to support their proposals, including details of existing and projected future usage. In addition to that, now there will be an additional sentence which I'll ask Councillor Murphy to read out.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader. And that is, all business plans must be submitted and approved by the Cabinet Member for Resources and the Head of Finance by the 31st of December 2017. Yes, thank you again, Deputy Leader. And this is quite a straightforward one, I'd like to think. And the recommendation is to agree to dispose of the freehold interest in Undy AFC playing fields at nil value to the trustees of Undy Athletic Football Club. The council was approached by the trustees of that club to consider a CAT, as we call it, community asset transfer, of the playing fields at the football club to enable the club to apply for additional grants to upgrade and improve facilities. And the club currently has a lease with MCC. Its problem, of course, is that there's only 3 years remaining on it, and it's making it pretty well impossible for them to attract external funding. Bit of background, the club originally had one senior football team. It now has 3 senior teams, a ladies team, a veterans team, 16 junior teams, and supports a cricket team along with other sporting and social activities. The point of bringing that up is that it's quite clear that it now exists as a much wider support network and community hub. But as I said, the club has got to the stage where further improvement and development is being stifled by the inability to attract external funds with only that 3 years remaining on the lease. It is proved that ownership certainly opens an awful lot of doors. There are still funders out there who don't like leases. So releasing this asset to the community will enable the club to apply for those grants that it currently cannot access due to the lease. There will, however, be some safeguards incorporated in this, and in order to further safeguard the long-term future of Undy playing fields, and it's illustrated in Appendix A, it is intended to include within the conveyance a right of preemption in favour of Monmouthshire County Council or its successors in title in the event that the Community Council seek to dispose of their interests in the playing fields. So, as I said, Leader, this can only be a boost to the community. It is in line with our current policy, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Undy AFC to expand their facilities for the benefit of the community.
Thank you, Phil, and I thoroughly agree. I think this is a report which I suspect we can all agree with, but are there any comments before we move forward? No? Councillor Batruni.
Support it.
Councillor Taylor.
Just a question, Chair, and a request. In 3.6, it says, in the event that CCC, I presume that's just a typo, because it should be obviously Undy Athletic or whatever their full title is. That may refer to perhaps Cowent Community Council that was the subject of a previous asset transfer.
Well, if you're giving it away, I'll always take it.
So that may be useful to amend particularly in the covenant, that is, and the question the other question is, it refers to, we've got the trustees, details of the trustees and the structure in the application, the CAT application, but it refers to a management committee, but there's no detail of the management committee or, its operation. It would be really helpful to have had that information, because obviously there are only 5 trustees. The management committee presumably deals with the day-to-day management issues. And finally, again, a plea, and I think that this is one of the things that perhaps in Mega with Dundee could be improved and would lead to much wider community benefit, and that's if there were much better read across and join up of some, this has the potential to be an even greater community asset. I'm aware that it is a very important community facility locally, and I'm very happy to support the report, but I just again request that in its communication and work with the organisation, the council does help to facilitate those strategic links with other bodies and organisations within the community, because there is potential otherwise for some level of duplication if that isn't the case, and that would be a shame, because we have a deficit of community facilities and we need to really maximise the benefit of what we have, or what we potentially could have. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments noted. I think Councillor Hobson would like to come in.
Yeah, I want to echo what Councillor Taylor's just said. I mean, you've always got to be aware of that one. I mean, do we want lots of buildings or we want lots of services? And do you need buildings to provide the services? Sometimes you do get duplication. What I would also say is there's also another area that is about setting people free at the grassroots and getting on with things. And there's 2 community asset transfers that we have done, or similar sorts of things. One is at Abergavenny at the community centre there. I've just come back from their opening of their grand kitchen this morning. What is happening there is truly incredible. The links that have been made in the community. And also remember what happened at the drill hall in Shepstoke, which was another asset transfer that we did. And I suspect what will happen at Roggett as well, it's not the duplication that's the exciting bit, it's going to be the things we didn't think of. And it's just about communities just developing, now they've got control of an asset, and developing and see what happens. So yes, because we're really enthusiastic about the results that we've seen in other areas and the positive benefits, obviously it won't be here's your building, get on with it, or the asset, and then leave them alone. They will get that continued help, support and mentoring to achieve the things that we couldn't even think of at the moment and we didn't guess.
Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Bob. I was just really going to say I'm sure that Mike has taken on board your comments about joined up thinking, because there's a lot going on in that part of the world. I know you're not tied up with the community asset transfer, Mike, but you are with everything else, so that's worth bearing in mind. And of course, this will go to legal now, so all those other points that you brought up will be ironed out through the legal process. So I wouldn't worry about the fact that it's not there. It certainly will be in the final conveyance, which is drawn up.
It would have just been helpful in the report to see that, so there's assurance.
Okay, I think we'll move to the vote on that. The recommendation first to agree to dispose of the freehold interest in Undie AFC playing fields at nil value to the trustees of Undie Athletic Football Club using the powers provided by the General Disposal Consent Order Wales 2003. All in favour? Thank you. And we move on to the Education and Welsh Church Funds Investment and Fund Strategies. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader. And this is a report that's come before us before. The purpose of the report is to ask Cabinet's approval for the 17-18 investment and fund strategy for trust funds for which the authority acts as sole or custodian trustee for adoption, and to approve the 2017-18 grant allocation to local authority beneficiaries of the Welsh Church Fund. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Included in the recommendations are to delegate the responsibility for the execution and administration of Treasury management decisions to Head of Finance, Section 151 officer, and to approve the 17-18 grant allocation to local authority beneficiaries, to the Monmouthshire Welsh Church Act Fund of 200,000 to be distributed in accordance with population shares as per the 2010 census, and to endorse the principle that 2017-18 grant allocation in respect of Monmouthshire Farms Trust Fund accord closely with the previous year's investment return at the end of March 16, and that's predicted as being around 15,000. Just for a little bit of background for those who don't know, maybe looking in, the authority acts as sole trustees for the Welsh Church Fund and the custodian with responsibility for financial arrangements for the Monmouthshire Farm School Endowment Trust Fund, and is required annually to approve investment and fund strategies for them. In addition, for the Welsh Church Fund, the authority is required to determine the grant allocation for the forthcoming year. Now, the contract for the position of Treasury Advisor was retendered in 2015-16. This resulted in Arling Close being re-awarded the contract. They've held it very successfully for quite some time. And all three bodies will therefore continue to receive ongoing advice and support on investments, and that new contract with Arling Close starts from the 1st of April 17. So that's the gist of the report, Deputy Leader. I just put it forward for approval.
Thank you, Phil. Straightforward, maybe. Any comments from Cabinet members? No? Councillor Petruni.
Yeah. I thought it was the point of accuracy. I thought it was the 2011 census. Was there a 2010 census?
Yes, you're right, thinking about it. I read it on here, but yes, it is 2011.
And just on that, it came to me, and maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but haven't local authority funding population... I have, yeah, sorry, leaning. Thanks for that. Local authority funding based on population, hasn't it been changed to a 2014 model recently by the distribution subgroup, which has resulted in Monmouthshire getting a better settlement slightly, and saying like Newport dropping, and there's been a change in the money? And I'm just wondering if that is the case, why aren't we using it here, which will be benefiting Monmouthshire residents more, Monmouthshire, as opposed to other local authorities?
I'll ask Joy Robson to respond to that, please.
I'll try and answer the question. I think the answer is in terms of the fact that when the trust was re-established on reorganisation, the scheme will dictate how the allocations would have been apportioned between the different authorities. I'm looking across to my legal counterpart over there as to whether he can remember, but I'm fairly sure that this isn't governed by local authority funding proportions. It's specific to the trust and the scheme that was agreed at the point of time when the trust was recommissioned after reorganisation.
Would it prevent us from advocating the change to the trust and using a different set of projections for population, since it benefits us?
I feel sure that officers will do whatever they can to ensure that we actually get our fair share and that it is allocated in the proper way. But I don't know whether anybody else wants to. Rob Tranter.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think then that when this trust fund was created, that was the split that was used. Whether or not now that split needs to be updated, if you like, to take account of population changes, then that's a matter for the trust fund, isn't it? And we'll have a look at that and whether that can be done.
Okay, I think that's a useful point to make. So could I ask that those officers involved in this take this forward and just check it out? Councillor Taylor? No, nothing? Okay. If we move to the vote, I'm afraid there's 6 recommendations, so bear with me on this. They are that the proposed investment and fund strategy for 17-18 for the Monmouthshire Farm School Endowment Trust be approved, that the proposed investment and fund strategy for 17-18 for the Welsh Church Fund be approved, to delegate responsibility for the execution and administration of Treasury management decisions to the Head of Finance, Section 151 officer, who will act in accordance with the investment and funds strategy. That's in Appendix 2. To approve the 17-18 grant allocation to local authority beneficiaries to the Monmouthshire Welsh Church Act Fund of £200,000 to be distributed in accordance with population shares as per the 2010 census. We'll leave that as, or 2011 census. And we'll leave that as that. To endorse the principles that 2017-18 grant allocation in respect of Monmouthshire Farms Trust Fund accords closely with the previous year's investment return at the end of March 16 to avoid eroding the overall fund. As a guide, investment returns are predicted as being circa £15,000. And finally, to endorse the Welsh Church Fund principles, policy considerations and grant allocation criteria for 17-18, Appendix 7, as considered by the Welsh Church Fund Committee on the 19th of January 2017. All in favour? Thanks. And we move on to the last report for the day, which again follows on, has a connection to the previous one, and that is the Welsh Church Fund Working Group's report. That comes to us on a regular basis. This comes as a result of the committee meeting to consider applications for grants. They have recommended a number of grants, and I'm going to read them out to you. In particular, one of them has changed from that which is on the agenda. It is resolved that we allocate £1,000 to Monmouthshire Citizens Advice Bureau, that Abergavenny Eisteddfod is awarded £500 to assist in the creation of a permanent agency to the Eisteddfod legacy, to the Eisteddfod stage in Abergavenny. And then finally, and this is different slightly to the agenda, Monmouth Methodist Club requested £4,000 to assist in refurbishing the kitchen and upper room for regular breakfast and lunch clubs for senior citizens and the wider community, as well as provision of an after-schools club for Monmouthshire pupils. And the recommendation from that application is that £2,000 be awarded to assist in this application. Are there any comments? No? Any comments? No? Straight to the vote. All in favour? Thank you, and that concludes the business of this afternoon. Thank you all for your